Hey class, it's Professor Marino from Brit Lit I. Starting with our first question, why do we have Brit Lit I? Why are we reading these books by long dead people? Let me give you 5 reasons. You might not buy into all of them, but maybe one will stick. First of all, influence. Why these writers? Because these are the writers that other writers and readers have read. They are famous, and their fame itself is a good reason, not because I'm a fan of celebrity, but because so many other important English writers, I mean English language writers, including American writers, Australian writers, what have you, have read Chaucer, have used Chaucer, have read Shakespeare, have read Milton, have read Spenser. Their influence is everywhere. They get referenced and repurposed all the time. So in a way, we need to read at least some of these people to catch up and know what's going on, or we'd be left out of the conversation. If we didn't read Shakespeare, he would still be everywhere around us. We should at least know what's going on in our literary culture. Secondly, now, you might ask, some of you might ask me, but aren't we Americans? Why are these all dead British people? I would point out that Brit Lit I are the British people that the English settlers to America, who by no means the only American settlers, brought to America with them. But these books are all written before the American Revolution, before that split. They are intellectual, literary, and sometimes political ancestors. Lord Byron is just my cousin, my problematic cousin. Just it was fun sometimes, but he's well, you might want to stay a little clear. Jane Austen is my funny, mean cousin. Milton is my intellectual ancestor. He's in fact one of the intellectual ancestors, of whom there are many, of the American Revolution and of the anti-slavery movement. We, the people in this country who became the strongest anti-slavery advocates, were often calling back to Milton. You know who loved Shakespeare? Abraham Lincoln. Good enough for Abraham Lincoln. I'm going to go out on a limb and say good enough for you. So these are part of the American tradition too, because they're imported to America so early before America exists as its own political entity. Third, I'm going to say for the history of the language. As English majors, it's good to know about earlier forms of language. We could study it in a book with grammar, with examples, but it's more productive and a lot more fun to see early version language in action being used by masters at the highest level by people like Chaucer, by people like Shakespeare, who can really put this language to use and to gain through practice and familiarity some comfort with this language. Um, all of these people, everyone we read is a crazy gifted artist. It's a very it's hundreds of years that I'm picking from, and I'm picking only extremely talented people. It's very hard to make this cut. There are a lot of great writers who didn't make the Brit Lit one cut, right? We're just missing them all. Chaucer's going to stand in for the whole Middle Ages. Damn it. Right? Lots of Renaissance people. No, a lot of great 18th century people. All the famous 18th century poets, they didn't make it. These people have crazy game. You might not always have fun on the first page, but respect the game. And those of you who want to be writers, here is my fourth argument. They are useful to rip off, to borrow from. It's much easier to get away with borrowing from, stealing from, repurposing, adapting a much earlier influence than a recent influence. It's like, hey, I see you did Crazy Rich Asians, except they're only like mildly depressed Asians who above or upper middle class. Oh, I see you did this thing with the Canterbury Tales. You did a Canterbury Tales, but 21st. I see what you did there. If you want to be a writer, learning how other writers work is the way to go. And these are people you can learn a lot of craft from. And the fifth thing I would say is one of the reasons we do it is because it's difficult. Sure. Is it easy reading Middle English? Not at first. I mean, it was easy 600 years ago. Everybody who spoke English spoke like this. They all knew. You learned it growing up. No one has grown up knowing how to speak this language for centuries. No one has been born speaking Shakespeare's dialect of English, early modern English, for 350 plus years. He's been gone over 400. That's okay. It's difficult, but you as an English major should not be afraid of difficulty. You should graduate knowing how to read the early literature and the most wacky experimental modern literature. The fact it's hard is just a chance for you to up your skills. So I'm looking forward to upping our skills together this fall. Let's go.